Hello, hello. Welcome to the Mise-en-Scene Weekly podcast, where we harken back to our college debate days and pick two movies of the same theme to clash, like cowboy boots and Stetson hats versus the fine tapestries with lavish scents, I might add. This week's episode is another iteration of For You Movies. I feel like we should have like some sort of applause or some sort of like tambourine or something needs to happen.
You'll tambourine would be nice.
Where we offer a new flick to each other that we haven't seen before. And to be honest with you, the theme, who knows? We'll figure it out as we go. But with that being said, we have a doozy one. Killer Joe versus Perfume. And I should say doozy too, I guess, to some extent. But this week's episode is a doozy. Come join Jonathan and Steven for another week of desirably less plot chatter and hopefully more film banter. We are seen weekly, and welcome to our world. And welcome to the 4-time Premier League champion in a row. That is Manchester City.
Yeah, they did it. They did it.
Arsenal crumbling yet again.
That was great to watch. Great to watch.
I was with Mark, and we went to Amity, which was fantastic. Met a guy who runs a bar or a pub in Manchester. I don't know what that means. He said he runs it. So what would you define that as a run?
I mean, he didn't say own it, so he probably
definitely doesn't own it. Doesn't look like he owns anything.
Maybe he's just a regular, and he's just like he runs that place. Like, I don't know. But he was in New York, just kind of there to watch the game, or
he
what?
was his missus. According, he had a pretty amazing haircut. I would say it's very similar to Andrew Schultz, but like even like up the ante. But with that said, he was there with his missus on vacation, and this week, or I should say, the match 38, which is the last of the season, is typically like a week before. And so I guess his girlfriend bought tickets for everything, like to New York for the first time, like months in advance. And for some reason, he never checked anything out to compare, which is odd if you're that big of a fan. He was at the Aguero moment in 2012. He was the Villa moment in 2022, where we scored 3 goals in 5 minutes. But nonetheless, Killer Joe versus Perfume.
I feel like this is turning into a soccer podcast at the start, but that's okay.
It should be. Yeah. I mean, let me start off then with the question, because it actually arose during our discussion, and we tend to not have discussions anymore. We just wait until this podcast, with that being said. But your comment that I think there was 11 or 7, I saw actually competing versions of this at Cannes, where there was was it Megalopolis? Is that how you say it?
Megalopolis, yeah, the new Francis Ford Coppola mind bender. Yeah.
So the interviews with Francis and the build up to this have been hysterical. Like, he was like, "What do you say to the people that you spend all your money on just funding it?" And he's like, "Basically, I'm not going to take it to the grave, and I'm not going to know when I'm dead." I was like, "That's such a baller move, baller answer," but it was delivered much better than myself. But your question was, there was a 7-minute or 11. I saw that one person said 11, but I think you said 7-minute standing ovation at Cannes, which is just it's very prevalent to have standing ovations at Cannes. And I debated. My immediate knee-jerk reaction was, I hate standing ovations that just go on in perpetuity, almost like it just continually.
It's very strange.
Continuously. What are your thoughts? I have some thoughts, but I want to know your initial thoughts.
Initial thoughts on standing ovations. I feel like it's very, very strange and weird to clap after a film. It's like those people that have you ever like been in a plane and the plane lands and you hear some people clapping?
I've never heard that.
Oh, I have, and it's kind of hysterical. But
I'm just kidding. Of course I have.
Okay. Thank you.
They're the worst. They're the scum of earth. I am dead serious. Like, nothing in life probably more annoys me more, and this is probably why I'm iterating to the standing ovation part. Those people all need to go on an island and enjoy themselves for the rest of their God-forsaken lives. But yes.
Yeah. So, there's some things that I feel like are called for standing ovations, like lifetime achievement awards. Something happens in a baseball game or a soccer game, and that kind of standing ovation, it lasts 2 minutes, right? But for a film, here's the thing though: Cannes is known for two things, right? It's known for their long standing ovations, but they
Yeah.
also boo a lot at Cannes, which I think is fantastic. I think that's great.
Yeah. I both of which are just so ridiculous to me. But that's my initial reaction. My actual observant or pondering reaction is more of a detailed, nuanced discussion. And I like the idea of an audience collectively getting together and gutting something out, whether that's exercise in the New York City Marathon or something along those lines. So they have decided ad hoc in the moment, we're just going to continue clapping. And if you decide that you don't want to be in the bandwagon, you stop clapping, and eventually that's going to dissipate. And so there's this collective identity, I think, this echo chamber, if you will, in a live format of watching this movie. And maybe it's contrived and maybe it's not, but I think that they're in agreement that they're going to either continue or not. And so whether somebody has like a stopwatch to see like, oh, last year, like there's an 8 minute, we got to beat that or like something along those lines. I think actually, if it's thought out, maybe, if the audience collectively is getting together to continue putting their hands together one by one, there is something to it. But with that being said, it just seems like a contrived way to tell somebody, great job. You get a star.
It's ridiculous.
It
But
seems,
it's not always the good films that get the standing ovations. Like Indiana Jones last year got 8 minute standing ovation or whatever it was. So I kind of hold my breath to see if Megalopolis is going to be something worth watching.
maybe though the standing ovation was like, this is the last indie flick and we appreciate all that you've done. So like there's nuance, I think, in the standing ovation. So maybe
Yeah,
it's
but it
not
wasn't even
just a
directed by
movie.
Steven Spielberg. Like
That
I
doesn't
just don't
matter.
get.
I just think
Yeah,
that, look, I am trying to fight for the
I see
uncommon
that.
man, I guess. It's just clearly my knee jerk reaction is, this is so dumb. Like, why is this possible? I
Well,
also don't like encores.
I imagine our listeners and watchers, after listening to our podcast, they probably give us a standing ovation. So, you can't hate all of that.
I mean, you probably get at least a minute. I'd definitely get 5 for
You,
sure.
you get 5. Okay,
My points definitely make more of a
you get a star.
resounding effect. I get a gold star.
Jonathan, you also have a different kind of mise-en-scene background that we're looking at this
Do
week.
I?
Yeah,
I
you
can't
changed
see
it up.
myself. I did change it up. I actually, strangely enough, when the camera was higher and beyond, I wanted more of the scene in the background, so the paintings were actually higher, so I lowered them all the way, and then I changed all 4 of them up to begin with. Now I'm looking at the ones that used to be back there: Monty Python, Memento. I don't have any idea actually. Oh, Old Boy and Women on the Verge and Amelie. You haven't seen, but yeah, I have got some
Looks good.
Stalker, which I would love. I I didn't want faces. I don't even know if you can see. Can you see Harold and Maude's faces?
Yeah, that's the only movie that I've seen of those posters. So
Y tu mama también?
I didn't see the title of that. I just see the hand. So
Oh, it's Y tu mama también,
I've
and
seen
then
that.
the
Yeah,
Holy Mountain. But you've seen some of the Holy Mountain,
I've
nonetheless.
seen
But
some. I've seen some of the Holy Mountain. Yes.
I have I have changed it up. I figured might as well get some more. I don't even want to tell you what extra items you haven't seen, which I did say one, but I will change it up as the weeks go on. Keeping it fresh, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
keep it fresh
it's a
for you
killer joke.
films.
Yeah, I love
Uh,
the For You films. Even though um, I wait for bated breath, to talk about these films, but it's fun. It's fun watching films you haven't seen before.
and also picking movies for you to watch so I can hear your reaction on them or you can hear mine because
Yeah,
that's kind of the fun of it because like these movies definitely in some respect hold a some kind of memory for us because it's something that we want to share with somebody else. So this is our way to do that. You know what I mean?
to some extent. I mean, for me, it's more like possibly not only something you haven't seen before, but mine's always probably going to be more of a challenging assertion. Like the Holy Mountain, I definitely want to do For You, um, and get through it, if you will. And yeah, I like the challenging notion of For You, but I'll probably stem outside of this box of challenging and choose something else. But nonetheless, here we are. Killer Joe. I had never seen, never heard about it. Didn't watch the trailer. Didn't watch anything for that matter. Looked up
Good.
zero to do with it, and then I bought it. But that's when I realized Matthew McConaughey's in it. I was like, oh shit, I had no idea. Didn't look up the year until after, but it's an interesting it's an interesting set of movies in which I say this pretty much every week. I was like, I don't have any idea how to like judge these like movies at all.
They're
I
they're
still don't, to be honest. Like I don't, I don't, I just don't know how to do it. This is the hardest one. It's just so dumb too. Like, are they good movies? I don't know. I don't know. Both of them. I'm not even talking about yours versus mine. It's a bit absurd. Like, one movie is about. Do you want to go into Perfume as the background, and I'll talk about Killer Joe? I think we should do this collectively. Might as well.
Yeah, we can do it
Yeah.
collectively. I'll kind of lay the groundwork here for Perfume. This is a Tom Tykwer film, directed by Tom Tykwer, best known for Run Lola Run. He's a German director, and starring Ben Whishaw, Alan Rickman, and Dustin Hoffman. You got a budget of 60 million with a box office of 135 million worldwide. So it did pretty good. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 59%. IMDb is a 7.5 out of 10. The tagline of this movie: he lived to find beauty, he killed to possess it. Obsession can cause the unthinkable. Now, this is a film where we start in 18th century France, Paris to be exact. It's the worst smelling city in the world, and boy, do we see why. We see a lady selling fish, and she's pregnant, and she just gives birth right there at the fish market, at her market stand, and disregards the baby because she's had five other of these babies at the same place that were all stillbirths. So she didn't really think much of it. But little do we know, this baby starts smelling all the glorious and horrendous smells of the fish market. And this baby survives. He is Jean-Baptiste Grenouille, and we follow his journey of smell and his obsession that goes with it, defining and perfecting the perfect fragrance. It's a journey of murder and the making of a monster. What a film. Uh,
The Making
took
of a
me to
Murderer.
Yeah, it took me to places that I didn't expect for 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 sure. But it's
It's
based off a novel.
it is, yeah. I don't. I've seen this movie a lot. I still every single time I'm like, I don't know what to think about this film. To be fair, like I'll try to talk about it, but it's like I just don't like. There's a narrator throughout the entire movie until like we're trying to figure out quotes and try to objectively analyze this movie. And I was like, every single quote basically is from the narrator. I was like, can you have a quote from the narrator? I don't even know. Like, I don't even know. I don't even know what to do with this. Like, he's just barefoot, just smelling people, killing them. And I was like, this is the weirdest concept of a movie that somehow somebody got wasted or high and was like, this is the greatest idea ever. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me give you the. Yeah, go ahead.
The reason why this concept is weird is because movies are sight and sound. And when you try to bring scent and smell into the language of film, it rarely, if ever, works. Right? I think food can work because food is very visual, but scent is not, and it's very hard to capture what's going on. I think they do a really good job visually, especially that opening scene of the fish market and seeing the fish guts, and just like there's no Old Spice deodorant, there's no toothbrushes with mint green toothpaste, there's nothing like that. Like all these people just smell horrible.
And
Um,
I think everyone knows exactly what they're looking at in terms of the environment for which the fish is there. But even more so, I think that the addition of the dead bodies and the extraction of the scent without that side of it, you really don't have a movie. There's no conflict either. I mean, I guess you have a conflict where he doesn't have a scent to begin with, but it's there's chocolate, like you have food, like it's easy to make a movie about food. I mean, there's I don't know, not thousands, but there's a lot. And
there's a lot.
making a movie about scent, especially one that has a narrator throughout the entirety of it. So but I think, what's his name again? Jean Baptiste.
Jean-Baptiste Grenouille.
So he's on, like, his performance in my view was the best in the film, and I hadn't seen him in anything else pretty much otherwise, but I loved his interpretation of that act, that character. It was terrific. I really liked it a lot. Um, but just a weird film. I mean, both these films are just so odd, like off
Well,
the wall odd.
here's the thing. I think our idea this week for the For You films were just to, like, you wanted to give me something that just obviously I'd never seen before, but like it just kind of throws you through a loop. And I think Killer Joe does that in the same respect, in a different way. But here's the thing: like, I surprisingly never heard of this film. Um, and this came out in 2006 when I'm like, in the middle of discovering films and learning, like really in film school, right?
Yeah,
And this just flew past me, but I don't think it got much of a release
no,
in the US. It was more of an international film, European film. Um, but yeah, I did recognize that actor, Ben Whishaw. He was in the 007 movies as like the smart tech guy. But like these minor roles,
yeah,
never saw him in a starring role. But I even like I kind of tried to fall down the rabbit hole with this. I even like bought the audiobook and like listened to like a few hours of that just to kind of like get the impression of what the author was going for versus
yeah,
what the filmmakers were going for. And it's interesting. Jean Baptiste's character in the novel was more of this just short, ugly, mute, very just not very pretty. As I
yeah.
mean, it's kind of different, but I don't think you want to cast somebody like that because he, I
You
mean,
don't
he
get behind
does,
them,
yeah, and he does evolve into this obsessive killer monster.
does
And
he?
yeah,
I missed that part.
yeah, it's you gotta really watch the film to see those things.
Well, to juxtapose, Killer Joe. It's 102 minutes. It's directed by the same director as The Exorcist, William Friedkin. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah, William
2011.
Friedkin.
Actually, NC-17. So Friedkin got the NC-17 rating, and he was like, "Fuck all of you and your mothers. I'm not changing a goddamn thing," which I love and really appreciate. They said basically I think the studio said you gotta you gotta get rid of, as you know, and we'll get into a lot of these scenes. In particular, let's go with the blowjob scene, and then secondarily, let's start with that, and then probably go with the chicken leg scene or chicken scene that the bludgeoning scene. But it's a crime thriller that's mostly surrounding a family, but at 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, 6.7 on IMDb. The budget was 8.3. Didn't do too well in the box office, 4.6. It was kind of like the word of mouth from this movie. I would imagine wouldn't be good in terms of like you got to go watch this. It's like it's gonna take a particular person such as ourselves to be like, you really need to go watch Killer Joe. It's gonna challenge you. Every normal person is probably gonna be like, nah, that description doesn't sound good. Which is this? A cop, Matthew McConaughey. And if you stop there, you'd be like, let's go watch it. This is great. It's probably set in Texas, which it is. Awesome. Let's keep going. Who moonlights as a hitman. Oh my God. Let's continue. This is they the hated mother of a desperate drug dealer, Emil Hirsch, who's playing the son, in exchange for a tumble or sex with the young man's virginal sister, who is played by Juno Temple. And that is like the shortest synopsis, the most simple synopsis, but it's basically based on a family where Killer Joe, who is a cop, and he moonlights as a killer, and a family wants to basically
We have to use some superlatives on this. This is a
taglines.
trailer trash stupid family.
We'll get
They,
there. We'll get there. We'll get there.
okay.
We'll eventually get there. But the family, they aren't the most intelligent in the world, and they want to get rid of their mom because there is a $50,000, $100,000 insurance policy on her name, and whether or not who is going to be the beneficiary, which was a hot debate, by the way, of like what that word even meant to begin with, trailer trash, aka. Um, they decide to reach out to old Killer Joe, who was recommended internally, very internally, to their family, um, to talk to a man, Matthew McConaughey, who is just, I would say, honestly, plagued by his own morals. I don't want to say plagued. He is, of anyone in the movie, he's the most moralistic. Like he has a box, and it's skewed, but it's a fucking box, and he will tell you exactly his moral fortitude. And if you fuck that up, it's on you. And
That's true.
I actually really do appreciate that because he's like, I'll tell you my morals again, and if this doesn't work, basically I'm just gonna kill you or something like along or hurt you, but you can't fuck this up. But what a strange, I don't even know where to start. What a strange compilation of movies. Honestly, like
Yeah.
the weirdest two that we brought together, and that's including Drop Dead Fred and Nothing But Trouble. These are weirder collectively.
I get the feeling of like these are two movies that when you walk out of the theater and you're with a group of friends, it's something like, what the fuck did we just watch?
Yeah. And I did that twice this last week. Both times. Like there were multiple times on both movies, and I was like, what is happening? Why what is happening? Like this is weird. But I like that. The Holy Mountain does that to me like a forced allegory like 1,000 times. But I like the approach you took. It's just
Yeah.
they're both strange, including Perfume.
Yeah. Did you mention that Killer Joe was based on a play, right? By
I didn't, but it is based
Tracy
on a play.
Letts.
Yeah. It is. And McConaughey was not into the role to begin with. He read it and he was like, this is garbage. And then he was told like it's really actually quite funny, like satirical and like black comedy. He's like, and then he reread it again like a couple days later. And he's like, oh, okay, I'm in. Like I got this. I'm gonna make this my own. Like I'm gonna definitely do this, which I appreciated. I could actually see that happening. I think Patrick Bateman, when being played by
Christian Bale.
Yeah, Christian Bale, when he was first reading that role, he immediately went to that like, oh, this is like funny. This is hilarious. This character, it's just a hilarious shoot. So I think it took a while for Matthew McConaughey to come around to it being just black comedy.
And that's the thing about this film. It's like it's this kind of perfect kind of like setup. You kind of seen this movie before, like get the hitman, get the money, get the insurance policy, whatever. But like with this kind of tone and this kind of stupidity, and like it's just it's all baked in, and with the performances that they give, it just makes me laugh. Like because I hadn't seen this movie in probably 10 or 12 years, and like it was funny to watch, funny to see expressions on people's faces, lines that are delivered. It was a blast.
Thomas Hayden Church was my favorite of anyone in the movie by far. Like by far. Thomas Hayden Church, he plays the father, who is pretty much down for everything and has his own moral box and understanding of a moral box, but I don't know how to say how dumb he is or like quantify it, but I will say it as a comparison to a character he's played in the past. He may well be dumber than his character in Wings. And if you've ever seen
That's
Wings,
pretty low.
He was mechanic in Wings, and pretty much nothing is understood, including a beneficiary. I don't think that character can understand it either. And that was my introduction to Thomas Hayden Church, and I absolutely love him. I know you love him from Sideways, but I'll always love him to death because of Wings in particular. I grew up on Wings, but it just reminded me so much of that mechanic character and dim wit that it felt like he was bringing the character back to some extent. But even like to an nth degree, when people are getting like potentially murdered and just beaten to a pulp, he's like, yeah, I agree with his moral box. Like I'm do what you got to do. And I was like, it's I don't know. I feel weird for laughing.
Here's a clip. Here's a clip that I'll play. One of my favorite quotes comes from this character of Ansel, and it's kind of near the end, but you'll get what I'm saying here.
Is it?
You just stop that.
That must be your boyfriend.
Oh, please.
Your boyfriend Rex.
Oh, please now.
That idiot. The one who's getting all that money.
I didn't know.
All 100 grand.
Just stop it! I didn't know anything about this, I swear.
Were you aware of this, Ansel?
I'm never aware.
Of course not.
That sums it up for me.
Yeah, he's not aware. He's not aware of anything. But Do you? I mean, he actually is portrayed as somebody that like he's not a intelligent person, of course, and he's not aware, and like that makes sense. But do you think he plays dumb?
No, I think he's just dumb. I think
You
he
think so?
is. Well, he. Here's the thing. Like this is what the kind of people that we have. We have Ansel the father and his son. His son is in debt by what, $6,000. Can't come up with
Don't
$6,000.
judge, man.
Hey, I'm not going to judge, but he asked, his dad Ansel. He's like, "Hey, man, if you can just give me $1,000, like I can hold him off." He's like, "I don't have it. I've never had $1,000 in my life."
And then what does he do? He
They
immediately
go
goes
to the
to
strip
the
club and
racetrack,
they buy beer.
strip club, and then the racetrack. Like that seems like a well. Honestly, like if you actually have known gamblers in your life, um, that's a reasonable estimation to think that your next high you can nail it, pay everyone off, and also get some for yourself, which is dumb, effectively. But it's just
Yeah.
the family is a mess. Juno Temple, um, who's Dottie, the daughter, the youngest daughter. It was hilarious because I don't know how far in, a half hour into the movie, and I'm like, what? Who is she? I was like, this
Right?
is so strange, and I was like, wait a second, Ted fucking Lasso, and then I was like,
Exactly.
I was sitting there. You ever get that? Like, first of all, I have the dumbest like movie memory, so I can watch movies over and over. And then, secondly, I'll like Sonia and I, or my wife and I, thought we were fairly good at like picking out like people in like these different roles, which we're both terrible at as it comes down to it. We Nanny, who's like actually terrific at it. So that's this person, so on and so forth, and has like a Wikipedia in his brain, and that's when we realized we're terrible. But I was like, who is this person? And then 30 minutes later, I was like, oh, Ted Lasso. This makes sense. There we go. But I do have a quote from her in reference to like her acting abilities, and I'll try not to scream into the mic anymore. So she said that Southern accents, because she's an English actress, are pretty easy for an English person because the voice comes from the same part of the throat and there's the same kind of music to it, which I found to be like almost romantic in her like breakdown. And I wondered if that's actually true because
It is.
my English
It is.
accent. Have you tried the part of voice?
Well, no,
Why don't we hear your James Bond Cockney accent, and then let's hear your accent from, let's say, Georgia.
I can't do that kind of thing right on the spot, but I did watch an interesting video. Yeah, I used to have a heavy Southern accent when I was a kid, but
Did
I did
you?
watch. I did. Yeah, when I was in third grade, I had just moved from Warner Robins, Georgia, to New Hampshire, and the teacher was asking all the students on the first day of class. They said, "Can anybody speak a foreign language?" And like somebody raised their hand, I can speak Spanish, and another kid like said something else, a little bit of French, and I raised my hand and I was like, "I can speak country," and
No, no,
I
you
did.
didn't.
100%. Yeah.
Did anyone say what country?
No, they just looked at me. Who's this hick?
Were you trying to make a joke?
No, I was dead serious. I was in third grade. I didn't.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I see. You could have been in, Dottie's older brother then.
We'll talk about Emil Hirsch.
No, I'm just saying you could have, you could have been a part of the family.
Part of the family. Yeah.
Yeah. You would have
But no,
fit in well.
the origins of the Southern accent are actually from the British people coming down, living in the South, and they're the second generation, third generation. Like that's how the accent progressed, and that's kind of how it came about.
Sure, but the fact that vice versa, people who can't with country accents do very good English accents is an interesting concept.
That's true, but I don't
So if they're
know.
the same, why can't that be the inverse?
Did you like Juno Temple's accent? Was it believable for you? Were you like, wow, this is a
It
British
actually was.
actress?
As somebody who I have a fairly good country accent, I should say, but I wouldn't say that. I would say Southern, not the Savannah Southern that you or I don't know on a plantation or like wearing what is it? Suit. What is this? What is the suit? Clearly, I'm not too much of a redneck, I guess. But growing up with a brother who is or was raised and still is to this day, and having a lot of friends that talk like this, I think she did quite well. Like quite literally, she did very well, especially with the English upbringing.
Yeah, William Friedkin actually like pulled Matthew McConaughey over and said, "Hey, like I'm picking this British girl to be Dottie, and I don't really know much about Southern accents and if hers is good or not, but like, will you just tell me if she doesn't hit the notes?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll tell you, but she's doing good."
Yeah, she was great. Um,
Yeah,
I will say this: the movie starts with a rain scene, and the rain scene has a dog that is barking.
T-Bone.
Yeah, which Killer Joe gets along with quite well. No barking, which is the only person that pretty much doesn't get barked at. With that said, why is there a 55-gallon drum burning and the rain is just pouring, like just pissing down? How is it burning?
This is the William Friedkin mise-en-scene, just in being playful of like, this is all the stereotypical trailer trash setting: dog barking on a chain, rain coming down, barrel of fire coming up, and you open the door, and who is it? Well, it's
First of all, do you have a clip for this, or
I don't know. I wish I did. It was hard to get clips on these.
I have a bunch of questions in relation to this breakdown. Have you ever burned a 55-gallon drum of trash before?
No, I have not. I think I would remember something like that, and I have not. No, have you?
I have. Yeah,
What were you trying to burn away?
my
Sounds a little
It's a very
fishy
good
here.
question. First of all, the question should be how old were you? And that was fourth grade. I should think back to fourth grade. It may have been third grade. But I went to school, old St. John Lutheran, and in Ocala, Florida. And I had a friend named Nathan, like Labaugh. He's not going to mind, I think. And we were best friends. And so he had in the back of his yard a big old sinkhole, actually. And we would actually take a rope swing. And I'm getting off topic, but that's okay. Let me. A rope swing that we would literally jump from the rope swing into the sinkhole that was, of course, going downhill. I don't know if you can see my hand, but we'd literally land and just slide like you would a normal slide into the bottom of the sinkhole. And it's such a Florida endeavor to do this. Like such, it's just very dumb. But anyway, on I don't want to get his family implicated for something that happened like 30 years ago or
I don't think.
35.
I think they're safe.
I think they're safe too. But his father was a carpenter who like chopped off his finger doing carpentry things. But I have a separate story that I'll share maybe later when it ever comes up. But with that being said, he actually would burn all his trash, and his family would burn all his trash, and they had a drum just like that, but they had a normal house. So I have seen this done quite frequently because I was over there a lot. My second question to you is: have you ever been in a trailer or had a friend in a trailer?
Yeah. Now I'm wondering if this guy owned a pig farm, but this is very strange. Yeah, I've been
You've
in a
never been in
trailer
a
before.
trailer?
I've been in a trailer. Yeah,
Hmm.
my grandma in Louisiana owned land and had a trailer on the land that we would go to.
Oh
So yeah,
wow! Did you hang out there much?
nah,
With the
I don't have
dags?
too I don't have too many memories of that, but I do remember it for sure.
It's reminding me of this. I had in Florida. There's if you grow up fairly poor, you're gonna have a lot of friends who have trailers. I myself did not have a trailer, but I had a lot of friends who had trailers, and I don't want to out this person, but like he was a very good friend of mine. He was the first for a variety of reasons. Anyway, his first name was Bud, and his father named him. His middle name was the end of a very popular beer that happens to be red and white. That's an American-made beer that ends in something that sounds like a Hefeweizen, close to that. But that
Got
was
it.
his first and middle name, and I didn't believe it for a long period of time. But we were good friends for a solid year, and I've seen his license, or I guess his birth certificate, because he proved it to me in his trailer. Um,
Sounds
unforgettable.
very on brand to live in a trailer and have
Yeah,
that name. That's
it was. I hope he's doing well. I tried to reach out to him recently, like about a year ago. He didn't reply to me, which makes a lot of sense. But nonetheless, this movie is wild. And it basically is a simple movie. They're trying to kill their mother to collect. It's been done before, but it hasn't been done in this way. And the family is also stupid, which has been done as well. But I just have another question. Do you enjoy strip clubs? I mean, it seemed like they very much enjoyed strip clubs.
it's not something that I frequent or I go out of my way to visit. I've never been to a strip club alone, only with a group of friends or
Huh.
people that close with. But yeah, it's not something that I got to go towards. You know what I mean?
That's a good threshold. Have you been to a strip club alone? And if your answer is yes, like maybe we have to reevaluate our relationship with
Yeah.
you and everyone that you're tied to. That's a fair point. Not to judge per se. I've never been to a strip club alone, but I haven't been to one in many years. But nonetheless, they're interesting places. But if that's your first inclination of heading with excitement, I think it's meritorious. I always say this, but I don't think that's a word. But it does merit your energy. Like if that's where you want to go, that's where you want to go.
Yeah.
Um, but
So
anyway,
they hired Killer Joe
but
Cooper.
if you had to end somebody, how would you start the process? Like
If I had
I need to get rid of my mom, for example. Like what would you do first? Do you Google it? There was no. Let's say there's no Google. It's word of mouth.
word
Somebody
of mouth,
recommends. Somebody recommends to you there's a killer. What do you do next? You say,
can we
you have an
yeah.
interview with the killer?
It seems like everything that they did in this movie would be the logical step, right? Like, oh, I heard
Right.
about this guy, and
Right.
he's a cop, which I mean, that's kind of like one red flag in and of itself. Like, oh, talk to this cop about killing your mom. It seems like entrapment, just right out the bat. Like,
Maybe,
what?
maybe, but I think the iota of dumbness is going to allow them to just they're at the ends. Like he's never had $1,000 to his name. He's basically the son is as well, like going to the shitter, doesn't have any money. That is an irrelevant point in my opinion. They're also stupid, so like they're not even thinking about that. And put yourself in their situation. I mean, I understand that you grew up in a trailer with your grandmother, but like understand that you can picture yourself there again. So what do you do first? Word of mouth. This makes sense. And then Joe comes in at an old billiards like pool hall that's shut down. They have an interview process. They do not have the money. And Joe and Joe initially is like, here are my standards. I'm walking out on you. And I love that. Because exactly everything like after is Joe's morality box and moral box. And I've always told this to like, Sean, our friend. I've always said like I myself have this moral box, and we each of us have this moral box and these standards for which you actually live and apply a moral judgment to in your own decision making as decisions come and go throughout every single part of your day. How you treat people, what you, for example, like there's some celebrities that like just go get I don't know their car washed, and there's always a story of something happening. For example, J-Lo, there's a lot of stories of her having issues with pretty much seemingly everyone. And there's other people that are exceptionally nice and
Like
where
Keanu
do you,
Reeves.
a
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves situation. But Killer Joe, he has this moral box. And so therefore there's no money to be had. They don't have it yet, and he's walking out. He said, "These are my standards. I'm not going to take this. You do not know who I am, nor have we ever had this conversation to begin with." And I was like, I'm immediately on Killer Joe's side. I was like, of course. He has a moral box. You fucked it up. You messed up family, and you're stupid. Move on with your lives. And then I was like, what's going to happen next? Clearly, the build up to this was like, he's going to get over, but how? And that's what I was very curious about. Just waiting and waiting for that moment.
But he offers the idea of a retainer.
Yeah.
It's like we haven't talked about a retainer yet. So,
and this is where things get interesting for me personally as a moral fiber. It's a tough one. It's definitely a tough one. You have to take a step back and think that this is an NC-17 movie, but it is just a movie.
It's just a movie.
But with a 12-year-old daughter, or is she 13? Can't
No,
remember.
no. That was
Is that earlier?
Is it actually a lot of people caught that wrong in the movie. She's actually
Yeah,
18
me.
or 19. Huh?
Oh, okay. Then I
Yeah,
then
she's
I don't have any issue. I was like,
she,
this seems very odd. Yeah.
no, he asked a question of like, how old were you? And she said about a previous relationship. People
Oh, okay.
thought she said, how old are you? And she's like 12, 13, like something like that. Yeah.
I should be from the trailer park.
She's just very stunted in her development. It seems like she is very youthful in that regard, but for reasons that might have to do with her childhood that happened that she remembers as a baby.
I wanted you to actually, but we didn't have time. We've kind of pushed this podcast off, but I didn't have the ability to get that scene where she talked about her mom. Um, but she is virtually everyone here is of the notion that mom's got to go, and for all their different reasons. And the mom has got to go, not only for money, the son, not only for hurt, Dottie, but the mom has got to go, like full stop, which is interesting.
Yeah, I like that they
To say the
don't
least.
they don't focus they don't focus on even the character or us really seeing who she is or anything like that. Like we get just our core group of people, and that's it. I mean, it is a play, and this play was pretty much set in a trailer, and you kind of expand that a little bit for the movie. But I like that notion of just really just we don't know if this mom was good or bad or what, but to these people, she's got to go, and she's our lifeline to this money. So
I mean,
gotta
she's
have
only
it.
seen, basically in the back of a car in the trunk, and that's that. It's a wrap. And they're like,
Yeah,
"Oh shit! Like this actually happened. We did this. Ooh, how are we going to pay for this?" And it turns out the beneficiary is not the family, but there's a retainer. And what is the retainer, Stephen?
so the retainer is your kind of fail safe, right? If you don't get the money, you get to fall back on something else, and this thing that
I
you
know
fall
what a
back on.
retainer is, but what is the retainer for this movie?
Oh, the retainer is Dottie. Dottie is the retainer. She is, like I said, 18 or 19 in the film, but very stunted. But she is a character that a lot of people underestimate her. Like she's actually very aware of things that are going on, almost clairvoyant. Like when the phone rings, and Joe's like, "Who's calling?" She's like, "It's for you." And of course
Yeah,
it was. And she has these early memories of when she was a baby and her mother putting a pillow to her face, and her surviving, obviously. But she has all of these, and also these subtle memories of her and her brother, Emil Hirsch. And, you know, the idea throughout the movie is Emil Hirsch is putting up the retainer of Dottie and then saying, wait, I don't like this. I don't like this. And saying, you can't have my sister. But I
yeah,
don't think it's just because she's my sister. It's because he has, these fantasies and these other things that are going on about her. Just adds another layer to this
yeah.
Jerry,
It's an
Jerry
interesting
Springer
dilemma,
episode of the movie.
and one in which yeah, Jerry. That's about as uh, to a T as I can like explain as a tagline. Jerry Springer as a movie in the trailer parks of Texas trying to kill your parent. Like that would be like my long-winded tagline. But I think it's so fascinating the tripling, not the doubling down, the tripling down, the quadrupling down of like at least for me as a viewer of the movie itself, of like where is this going to go? Because it's very simple. It's mostly in this trailer. Outside of the trailer, life. I mean, they went to the strip club. There's scenes outside, but very few. And it reminded me a little bit, strangely, of like Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, where it's just set in this one,
Yeah.
room, if you will, which is also, I believe, a play. And
Uh-huh.
it just it reminded me a lot of that, but in a sense of like the joke. The premise of the joke is the aristocrats. Do you know that joke?
Yes. Where you
And
just, Yeah, I do.
And so it's a tame version of the Aristocrats. And so you just have this environment of a trailer trash home and a trailer trash family who is trying to kill, in a story that's been replicated many times over, their parent or their mother to collect. And it's like, how far can we push the audience? The comedy scene in the Aristocrats is basically you're telling the worst story imaginable, and it's up to you to tell the worst story perceivable. But it's on that person receiving the information to be offended, and it's how far I can press them. And it's this not dichotomy, but like this relationship between the two. And I felt like that's what this movie was, at least to me, because once you get past like this is hilarious, they're just really stupid. I think there's a complexity and another layer to it of you receiving the information and like, what do I do with this? Like, I don't know what to do with this. Like,
Yeah, that's a good
Matthew
way to put it.
McConaughey's got a chicken wing in his hand, and he's gonna beat the living shit out of somebody with this. The other mom, I should say, and like just like they're gonna, the new stepmom, like is gonna get fucked up. And the whole shot like this is like, I don't know how I feel about this. This is me talking in my own head. Like
It's the climax. The
like
climax of the
want
film.
I
Yeah.
want this to happen because she deserves it. She thought the insurance policy was $100,000 and actually accidentally says that to Joe, who already
She
knows
was in
that
on it, basically. Yeah, because
because
Rex is her boyfriend.
because he
Or her-
has the check in his pocket. And so Rex was also the person who said, "Oh, you should check out Killer Joe." And so this unfolds as it is in front of you. But like to me, it's and I love movies that like force you into this weird moment of thinking about your own life and like how you feel about what you're seeing on the screen, and you have to go back to saying like this is just a movie and this is just something that I'm viewing on the screen. But I think when you're getting blowjobs from the stepmother and the father is just watching, Thomas Hayden Church is just watching everything happen, Ansel, and like, yeah, I'm okay with this, because if he's not okay with that, well, he's fighting Joe's moral box, and if you fight Joe's moral box, you get got. And I think that's what I like most about this movie, because I have my own moral box and I don't like it to be punctured, and nor does Joe.
I like that. I like that how you brought that up. That it is pushing you as a viewer to take this in, and it's kind of pushing you to almost the extreme of any movie. I mean, this is like you said, it got NC-17 rating, and if you go back and watch the R rating, it cuts a lot of that chicken wing scene out, obviously. And I respect the choice that he didn't want to cut his movie. He said even something like, "This is like um, America in Vietnam." Did you read that quote?
No.
Basically, they said we have to destroy Vietnam in order to save it, and that's what I would have had to done to Killer Joe to get an R rating. And he's like, "I'm not going to do it."
I did read. I think I read the quote before. I think I read the quote before that, but I'm glad he didn't. It's good he didn't. But around this time, McConaughey was like really crushing. Like you could tell
This
he's
is
really,
I was going to bring that
really,
up. Yeah,
really setting up for. I wouldn't say he's setting up for this role, of course, but I think he was definitely setting himself up to deeply get into character or have the ability, because I think that actually is very true. And you see this a lot with like De Niro, for example, of like consecutive films where people just like dive into a character and kind of get lost to some extent and do that again and are able to replicate it. And I almost think it's somewhat of a flow state where it's so soon, and back-to-back films, for example, I think Jack Nicholson, as we've already discussed in this podcast, like was able to do just that. But I think McConaughey was definitely setting up for uh, not only a transition away from what he was used to in the rom-coms, but he was definitely setting himself up for Dallas Buyers Club. But just unfucking believable performance by him.
it was great. And this was his era of the reconnaissance is how they described it, right?
Yeah.
Because before that, he was just doing like 50 First Dates, or not that,
Yeah,
50,
which were great.
Rom-coms.
First
right?
Dates is Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
But
How to Lose.
yeah, I mean, but his rom-coms are terrific. I mean, even before that, what's that dragon movie that he did where he jumped on a dragon's back? Rain of Fire.
Rain of Fire. Yeah,
I love that. He had still like some excellent movies, but nonetheless, like this is very different. I don't know when True Detective came out, but I would imagine it's around this time.
This was right.
All-
Yeah, this came right before that. I
Okay,
believe.
mean, but that's it. You could tell. Oh wow, this is a very, very different Matthew McConaughey. Like he chose, I think he chose this to get there, to not only to kind of like cut his character, his or what he has created as a character, as an existential like thought process. Like this is Matthew McConaughey basically, and like it's an apple, and he's basically cutting that in half, and the other side is going to become rotten. That's his rom com side, and the other half is basically his new side, where he's going to graft a new Honeycrisp tree and start picking from it. And he's got True Detective, he's got Killer Joe, he's got Dallas Buyers
Dallas
Club,
Buyers Club.
he's got all these new, like it's a new persona. But I think this role helped in that totality of his acting ability. Um,
Absolutely, I agree.
I thought about it like during, but I was like, oh wow, like I wasn't stopping and checking out like the years of everything, nor have I done it even now. But like it seemed like this is part of like his reconnaissance.
Reconnaissance. Yeah, yeah. An interesting just tidbit. His character name is obviously Joe Cooper, but in Interstellar, his character name is also Joe Cooper.
Yeah.
So I imagine them as the same person. He just kind of evolved over the years. And he went to space.
But a fun movie. That's not a fun movie. It's not a fun movie at all. It's a fun movie because The Holy Mountain does this to me, where I like to be awkward, but I like to be like supremely awkward in some movies. Some movies that press me, and I'm like, I think if you were ever to get to like, there's a definitely, we each have our own limitations. I mean, if you're killing children, I'm not gonna like that idea of
Yeah.
a movie. I just don't think it's just not fun. It's not fun to be pressed like that. I think you have to be slightly sadistic, but like the Holy Mountain, the killing of ideas, which I think Killer Joe does. It's a killer of ideas. Just the idea of like this trailer trash family, and but it's also simple. But I love movies that have a moral box and then shift things. And then everyone's moral box is like kind of like playing Pac-Man together. They're all eating each other. That's how I think of this movie.
Yeah, and I think the Joe Cooper character, with his moral compass, he's also trying to. He immersed himself in that family. He started living there, and even that last scene where he's like, "Let's put the dining table together. Let's sit around it and enjoy our meal." He's kind of looking for that family in a strange, weird way.
I don't know if he's looking for the family or if he's just actually going according to his moral box. I mean, maybe this is my own moral box, and he's just like, this is what's been created. You had your retainer. This is what you agreed to, and this is what I do. I think he has these standards for which he abides by, and he will not let them go. That's what I think he's doing. And whether or not I think it's transitory to say like, yes, he is a part of the family, but I don't think he's doing it that he's lacking in something. I think he's doing it because it's his moral box. This is what he agreed to. This is what he's doing. But in essence, watching it as a viewer is an interesting dilemma because I'm like, did this motherfucker just move in? Like, what's happening right now? He's got a room in Thomas Hayden Church. Ansel's like, yeah, it's Joe's room. Like, what is happening right now? Like, how is this possible? What the fuck is going on? It's very that's what I'm thinking in the moment of like watching the film, but it was funny. It was funny.
This is
And weird.
This is Roger Ebert's review on this film. His headline on it was "So stupid they're asking for it." William Friedkin's Killer Joe is one hell of a movie. It left me speechless. I can't say I loved it. I can't say that I hated it. It's expertly directed, flawlessly cast, and written with mercilessly black humor by Tracy Letts. It's about the Smiths, the stupidest family I've ever seen in a movie that's not a comedy.
I would agree with all of that, like
Yeah.
to a T. I would agree with every bit of that because it's not the worst movie. It's not the best movie. I honestly would like to watch somebody make a dumber family, not maybe a dumber family, like a foreign film for this.
Yeah.
I would
Like a
actually like
Korean?
to see Oh, that would be terrific. A Korean film for this, because then it goes to a very different extreme in Korean culture, like being very, very pushed to a rule set, like a rule set that you have to live by. Oh man, that would be terrific because Korean culture is all about that. That would be unbelievable. Or even like a Hodorowski. Like I would like to see that, even though he's got to get him on this podcast before he passes. It's my one goal in life. Please help
We got
us,
to ask
everybody.
him. Any other thoughts on this movie or?
No, I had no quotes. I don't think, other than yeah, I didn't have any. To be honest, I didn't have quotes on either of these movies, which is the first.
I have two kind of quotes, more of like an exchange.
Yeah,
The first one was when Joe and Dottie were on their first date that was set up in the home. Dottie had to put on the dress. Killer Joe's, tuna casserole, may I serve? And she just says, how are you going to kill my mama? Well, that's not appropriate dinner conversation, Dottie, unless you poison her. So Dottie's just straight to the point, which I like. And then another thing, when she sees Killer Joe, I think you mentioned this earlier when we were texting, but she said, your eyes hurt. And that means something, right? If she can see that, like
she's the
something,
one that's going to get out of the trailer.
Yeah. What do you think? How do you think this movie ends? We don't get to see the final situation.
I think they live happily ever after.
All right. Well, I'll end on this quote, and then we'll move on to Perfume.
You can't have my sister, Joe.
What do you mean, Chris?
I mean, I can't let it happen. You're not gonna marry my sister.
I don't think it's up to you.
Shut up.
Don't tell me to
You
shut up.
say another word, old man, and I will rip your head off your shoulders.
Now, Chris, I can certainly understand your love for your sister. But you gotta cut the old apron string sometimes.
Okay, I'm not gonna discuss it. She's my sister. I'm taking her with me. We're leaving here.
We should let Dottie decide.
Dottie doesn't have a say in the matter.
Oh, I believe she does.
You believe wrong.
And Dottie had a say in it, and I think she shot him. That's my take.
Maybe,
But we don't know.
maybe. I think maybe. I hope they all just kill themselves. I guess kill each other. It's like, what a disaster.
This was gonna be made into like a Netflix TV show, but it didn't happen.
No,
They try and take any kind of property or whatever and just be like, let's create. It's so stupid. Perfume, which was actually a Netflix TV show as well, 2 years ago.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Neither have I.
I don't.
But I kind of already went through the basics of it.
Yeah.
So Jean-Baptiste, I just want to like kind of set the stage here. Some of my favorite parts, because I thought this movie was going in one way. Obviously, like Perfume, the story of a murderer. Like the book was just called Perfume, right? So if I didn't know that second little tagline of the story of a murderer, I would have thought this movie was going in a completely different direction.
Oh, really? Why?
Well, because
you didn't watch the trailer.
I didn't watch the trailer. I knew nothing about this movie.
Right,
I just knew it was the story of a murderer. But I'm like, it's it seems very like the story of like almost like a superhero, right? Like he's got a superpower
because he is.
He is, yeah. He's got this
idiot savant with smell for sure. He's a superhero with smell, absolutely.
Yeah,
a man that is stricken to his own existence, which he doesn't have a smell.
He doesn't have a scent.
How is that possible?
He finds out later in the movie, but this is the thing. Like I said, I loved like superhero origin stories, and we were getting that right. We get him birthed, which was probably the most disturbing baby I've ever seen on film,
and also the earliest origin story.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
what is first?
his powers right away.
Yeah.
And it's just, I thought this movie was going in a different way. Like he's now at this orphanage. He can, smell a ball that's coming about to hit him, and he kind of dodges it or whatever. Like
Yep.
he's got this, like, he's a mutant superhero. Like this is going to be something cool. Well, it turns out it's completely different. But he goes and delivers a package to a perfumier. I don't know if that's what they're called, but let's go with that. And
Perfumatologist. I don't know.
yeah, this is where he meets Dustin Hoffman, who it like took me a second. This is kind of like your, not as long as the Dottie thing, but like I was like, is that Dustin Hoffman in this film?
Yeah.
But he's
Also
this
because you hadn't seen the movie before, you hadn't heard about it, so you're like, wait, there's no way Dustin Hoffman is actually in this movie. Like
Exactly.
from what I've seen so far, and there's like 33 minutes, like John Baptiste actually doesn't have a single word. But like, wait, this can't be happening. Like I didn't know about this movie. This came out in 2006. I was in like grad school, so all this I would imagine is like coming together. Like this can't be Dustin Hoffman. So everything is open for interpretation, right? Like you're just molding it. Like this can't. Why did he take this role? What is happening? That's what I would imagine that's happening.
These are the moments when like we don't talk about these films at all between the watch in the week that we talk about it on the podcast. But there are some times where I will send you a text and be like, holy shit, I am watching this movie. And these are the moments when I'm like, I haven't even gotten to the final scene yet. I'm obviously not going to text you on that because it's something that we have to talk about. But
yeah.
Just these like moments where I think the movie's going to this place, and I love the idea of like Dustin Hoffman teaching his apprentice the four chords of perfume and the 12 notes that come with it, and the elusive 13th one that nobody's ever discovered and is a legend. And what he can learn from Dustin Hoffman, who is this once very promising perfumier that had a great business, but lately has been very, very bad. He's been struggling. But he finds, Jean Baptiste, and he starts creating perfumes for him.
Yeah.
And they have a way of making perfume, which capturing the essence. It's a distillation method, right? They take flowers and they distill them and they get the scent that way. But there's another way to capture the essence of things, right? And Jean Baptiste tries to distill certain things and cats to capture their essence. And the Dustin Hoffman's character, what's his name, is basically just very like shocked. Like, you can't do that. What are you doing? But he says there's a dead cat.
So I have a question. Do you like cologne?
Here's the thing. I appreciate cologne.
And
I don't own, or I can't remember the last time I bought cologne. I do have cologne in my bathroom, but here's my point. I spend a lot of time at a job where I am not supposed to wear cologne.
Yeah.
It's a faux pas for me to wear perfume, or no. I'm basically scentless. I try to be Jean Baptiste when I'm at work.
Oh, I like what you did there.
No smell.
Got it. Do you scrub yourself like Gattaca?
That's part of my morning routine now. After I saw that, I was like, I got to do it.
Fair enough. So yeah. I'm glad you answered in that capacity, because I feel like, and this is probably very polarizing, but I feel like if you're an adult who's not Italian, you shouldn't be wearing perfume or cologne. And I shouldn't say that. You shouldn't be wearing cologne. I think that's like a mandate that you should not be wearing cologne as a man that's not Italian.
It's not
pretty
Italian.
clear. Yeah. I mean, it's just not going to go over well with the Italians. Like, to me, I mean, the last time I bought cologne, I have no idea. I mean, it would be in high school, maybe college. No, college. And I think it started with Draco Noir. Do you remember that black and white bottle?
I don't.
Dracar Noir. No.
All right. I still have a bottle from high school in my bathroom. It's Curve. I don't know if you've ever seen Curve, but
The green
it's-
bottle. So that was my second. So Curve was actually like probably my favorite, and that's the one I wore the most in college. And then looking back, I just don't understand why. Like, did I smell that badly? I don't feel like I did. Secondly, I went into Michael Jordan as well a bit in high school, so his is actually pretty tasty. And then I did like a polo sport or something along those lines. But ever since then, it's been 20 plus years, and I don't know a single man who wears cologne. Guess I don't have any Italian friends, but what I just don't understand, like why perfume and cologne. I understand it in this age. There's dead fish. There's a dead cat.
yeah,
There are dead things everywhere.
it's to cover something up.
Yeah, and I feel like you would have a lot to cover up.
What are you trying to imply, Jonathan? I
Oh, I just like perfume or cologne would cover you up well.
Yeah, I don't need that. I
No,
I smell fresh
you
all the
smell
time.
like a coffee cup in New York in the '80s. That's how I.
Ooh, that's a
But
compliment.
Sonia, my wife has a perfume, but she doesn't very often buy perfumes. But I do understand women who get perfumes, even though I don't really, to be fair and honest.
Have you ever like had a first encounter with somebody and like you can clearly smell that they're wearing cologne?
And it's a guarantee that they also have a gold bracelet or gold necklace, guaranteed,
Yeah, yeah,
and chest hair that's showing.
showing.
100%. And this isn't even like a movie. Like, and they probably sell real estate. That's like all of those things exist. And I, as I say this, I'm just thinking about my own real estate agent that we bought this house from, and that's pretty much just who I'm explaining at the moment. I love you. If you're watching, you did a great job. But nonetheless, I just don't. I don't understand cologne, but I also do understand deodorant. So who the fuck am I supposed to tell people what to do with their own lives? But I just think that as a human, maybe if you do smell, maybe you do need cologne, and maybe I just don't smell, nor do you. But nonetheless,
Maybe just
Jean
take a
Baptiste-
shower.
can we get to the 13th note? What do you think? Does he ever get there?
Oh boy, there's a journey. He finds out about another distillation or another method of capturing essence,
Ooh, what
and
is
that's
it?
it's the enfleurage
Okay.
method. So
What's
that's a
that?
method where you layer animal fat on the item
Oh, okay.
and you extract it by that means. And then you distill it through alcohol and it comes down. But that's another way of capturing the essence. And there's a place to learn that, and that's in Grasse. And Jean Baptiste does a final 100 recipes for Dustin Hoffman, so he can flourish. But I don't know if you've noticed this, but everyone that Jean Baptiste meets soon thereafter dies
They're dead,
off. Yeah,
including
they're dead.
Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, everyone. He's like,
Everyone, and immediately.
yeah.
Uh,
That brings me to like the theory of the idea that he is death incarnate, that he is the spawn of Satan, because one of the ideas of the spawn of Satan is that they have no odor. And is that, I mean, they never go out and write and say it in the film. But what do you think about
I mean,
that?
he is taking people down to the depths of hell, but I think maybe it's off screen that he's just utilizing them to make another scent. And he's got a 14th after he gets murdered
Maybe, yeah.
at his own hands. Maybe there's a 14th scent that he's making, and part 2 of Perfume is coming out in the next few years.
I mean, that would be a very strange way to see him resurrected from how he ended, but we can get there shortly. But here's the deal. He goes to Grasse, right? He gets a job to pick flowers and learn the enfleurage technique. And he's in this town of Grasse, and he sees a lot of he meets a prostitute with a little dog, and he decides to buy her services, but for different reasons than one might. So he takes her back, and he starts asking her to put this animal fat on her arms. She gets hesitant about the whole process, and he kills her before she leaves. And he figures out a way to get her scent.
Accidentally
way
kills her, mind you.
correct, yeah. Well, he bludgeons her on the back, right?
Oh, I was talking about the one he chokes. We should talk about the
Oh
first death,
yeah, that was
where he
earlier.
accidentally kills somebody when he was trying to cover, and then that's how this all originates.
He was stalking that girl with the fruit basket, and that plays a major theme because it's like he flashes back to her later in the film, but we can discuss that here in a minute. But I do want to talk about like how he kind of tests his theory, and it's kind of clever. Of
Immensely
the
creepy.
prostitute, like I said, had a dog, and
Yeah.
he does the enfleurage, gets the scent, tests it out, and puts a little bit on his finger, and the dog comes right over and smells him and licks it off. But it works, right? He
The
has
former
figured out
owner
a
is
way.
back.
Yeah. And so now it's game on, and we just get death after death, montage after montage of these young virgins being killed and shaved heads and strewn. And all this time, the town is going crazy and trying to find out who this killer is. And we were introduced to Alan Rickman's character, which another one was like, he's Snape. Yes, I was like, he's in this film. This is great. He's usually the antagonist, evil guy, but here he has a daughter that could be susceptible to this mysterious murderer, and he's like, "Nah, we're getting out of Dodge. I'm gonna get out of town." And another cool scene, and also kind of a quote when they leave the town. They kind of do this split off thing where the trailer and horse and trailer go south, and the two go north. But the guy that sees them sees the trailer go south, but he can smell with his nose. And we can smell where they're at. And I love that just quick zoom over the mountaintops, and he's like,
Yeah.
I mean, he's a superhero. He's like like I told you, he's using it to find this redheaded girl to capture that 13th scent.
I don't know my movie memory again. Like I can watch a movie and like 2 weeks later watch it again and like pretend like I haven't even actually seen it, or not pretend, but lack of pretension. And so there's a moment before all of this actually where I believe, in walking to the city, I think he was barefoot, but he heads into a cave, and it's kind of like this backstory of like him not having a scent and realizing he doesn't have a scent, and he's in this cave and can't smell anything at all, and it's of great importance to him. He's like, this is magnificent. I'm just in my own head. I don't have to be concerned with basically what is bringing me down to some extent. And then he finally exits that cave. He probably should have stayed there, but nonetheless,
he says something important in that, and it's like, if he doesn't have like the scent of something is equal to the soul.
yeah.
And he is realizing that if he doesn't have a smell or a scent, does he even exist? Is he even worth existing?
Well,
And
what he's trying to say effectively is that can anyone love him? That's really what he's asking. Like, if he doesn't have a scent and if he doesn't have a soul, can he actually be loved? And the answer to that ultimately is no, I think. And ultimately, that's what he realizes at that moment. Like, he's never going to be loved. And he's only going to be loved for his superpower. And if that's the case, everybody's got to go. And he wants to create the most delicious scent imaginable. And at least he does that. That's how I perceived that moment.
Yeah, he does. I mean, that's his ultimate goal, is to get that 13th scent. And he does. He breaks into the girl's room, shaves her head, gets her scent, and then is captured right away. But he has that vial of all of the smells and scents of the women he has killed. So he's locked away, and he encounters Alan Rickman's character in a torture scene. And this is like one of the. I love Alan Rickman.
Me too.
And this is like one of the scenes where he actually got to chew on some scenery here. So let's play it.
When you're laid on the cross and the 12 blows are crashing down on your limbs, and when the crowd has finally tired of your screams and wandered home, I will climb up through your blood and sit beside you. I will look deep into your eyes and drop by drop I will trickle my disgust into them like burning acid until finally you perish.
Great. He's setting it up where he's telling the viewer what we're about to witness, what we're about to see, and we all have in our mind that this is going to be good. We're going to see Alan Rickman have his day, have his moment, and the exact opposite happens. I mean,
Yeah, the complete exact opposite happens. And before we get to that scene, have you ever bought pheromones online?
this is a concept that has been introduced to me 5 seconds ago. I had never heard of buying pheromones online until you just asked me this question. So I've never had the
pheromones. Do you know what pheromones are?
Yes, pheromones are the scent, I guess, that people of attraction. Yeah, I've never decided to Google search, can I buy pheromones online to help my.
Well, you should have in college, because that's what I did. There was this pitch in the blue bottle, of course. Blue just seems like it's more mysterious, right? Like you can actually kind of see through it. I don't know what's in there. Maybe let's just try this out. But I did order it. I don't know. It's like $20, $30. It's probably just made of like common tea tree oil and just it makes you stink. But like I tried that out just to see what would happen. I had a girlfriend at the time who or knew. No, I don't know. And it didn't work for me. Maybe
No,
it was like
big surprise. Sounds like snake oil.
She didn't like me. Yeah, maybe it was. It may have been snake oil. But I think there is probably an essence of smells, and there are definitely certain smells that are more attractive than others. I think there's also attractive perfumes. I think when you get into like the orangey sense for me, not the like straight orange, but like you get into the lavender, like the vanilla sense, I just want to throw up in your face. But like the orangey the zesty ones are pretty nice. But I think we each have our own little olfactory system that's able to perceive what maybe is needed or maybe is not. And I think there is definitely something to smells themselves.
Yeah. Do you think the power of smell can alter somebody's alter somebody's state of mind?
If I made you a dozen cookies and you didn't know that those dozen cookies were being made and you just smelled them, and then I tell you I've got 6 cookies for you, you just have to do 100 jumping jacks. Would you do the 100 jumping jacks?
Oh yeah, I mean,
there we go.
Chocolate chip cookies. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. So I think you can be persuaded, and I think if you could be persuaded in a physical manner, you could probably be persuaded in a mental manner. That's going to make you do physical things, such as having an orgy, possibly.
Yeah. So Jean-Baptiste Grenier is in chains and about to be escorted to the torturer. We see a big crowd of people, and this isn't just some kind of CGI crowd, Jonathan. This is 750 extras, which is important to note.
This. Like of the most 5,200 extras.
Was that the number? I read something or heard something about 750 extras.
Oh, the totality of it. I'm so sorry. The totality of the entire movie had 5,200 extras.
I believe that. Yeah.
And 67 speaking roles and 102 sets and 520 technicians that were employed. But yeah, the one
and one narrator, John Hurt.
Which is just anyway. I like the narration, but I got halfway through and I'm like, has anyone actually said anything important in this entire movie? Like actually, a substantive quote, and I was like, I don't think so.
It's a kind of weird thing that this is a very visual movie that relies on the scent of smell, and that's it's just doesn't these things that don't make sense.
Weird.
Yeah,
Don't make
that's
sense.
why.
Maybe it does. Hey.
Um, here's the ending of this film, and I'll just kind of break it down.
But what an ending. Oh my God, what an ending. Did you see that coming though? Did you see this coming? Like, I have to like pause before this even happens. Like, did you see this coming?
No, and here's the
You
thing.
can't.
Well, here's the thing. The little breadcrumbs have been laid throughout the movie because I watched this film again today. Or not all of it, but like certain parts. Because I just had to wrap my mind around some things. And when and I didn't notice this the first watch really, but when Jean-Baptiste Grenouille's boss, comes in and starts to yell at him, he puts on some of the scent that he's already made of the twin girls that he just killed, and it changes
Yeah.
the anger into more, oh, I'm going to be nice to you. But I
Very
didn't
nice.
see it on this. I didn't see it on this scale. So Jean-Baptiste is courted in, not in chains or anything like that, but he's dressed like a pauper, like he is dressed like a prince. And you're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
And he walks through this crowd up to the centerpiece of the torture man's cross that's kind of laid flat. And everybody's just kind of in awe of him.
Scared.
Scared, pretty much.
Yeah.
And the torturer takes off his mask, bows to him, and says, "This man is innocent." And that's when you know, okay, this perfume is doing some work.
Yeah.
And so not does he only does he have the superpower, he has this other supercharged item that he can dispense at will now to control people's minds, and not only control people's minds, to make them in ecstasy, right? So he takes a handkerchief, waves it across the crowd, and the whole crowd just begins having an orgy, taking off their clothes.
Yep.
Again, no CGI. Like this, I don't know.
It reminds me of, I just read a book called Fast Girl by Susie Favor Hamilton. It reminds me very similar of the story of her going, she's a 3-time Olympian. I think you probably know who she is. And she became an escort in Las Vegas, and she was taking Zoloft, and for bipolar individuals, taking Zoloft evidently is like one of the worst things that you can potentially do. But eventually, if you're high on your manic side of bipolar ism, you have this hypersexual like nature to yourself. I just imagine her in 700 or 699 versions of her in manic like extrapolation on screen. I mean, I just finished the book today, so this is probably why I'm saying it. I feel like every book that like I'm reading now just somehow ends up in what I'm telling you in some weird diatribe. But like that's what I picture. Like somebody who just has this overwhelming notion or overwhelming urge that they cannot contain, and they just have to have sex with the person around them. That's how I perceive this. But could you imagine having that ability, basically, to not only manipulate the people that are around you, but strangely, I have also a more important question. It'd be interesting to have this ability. Why didn't it work on Alan Rickman?
I'm confused at the question because it worked on Alan Rickman.
No,
he came up to the.
He just started talking to him, and he was like, "You did this to my like." It did not work on him to the extent that he's having a full-on orgy.
Right. But Alan Rickman was looking to me. This is how I read it. Like he was going to walk up there and kill him, and instead of doing that, he had to bow down to him because he was all powerful.
Why is everyone else having an orgy and he's not? Why is he the one person?
Because he still has this trauma of losing his daughter that is fueling him to block that. But
There's
when he
13 other people that have trauma of a person that's been lost that's directly tied to them, and they're all saying off of his head basically before and immediately changed. I don't think that's anyway. I don't think that's the. I don't know the reason, but I don't think that's the reason. But I think there's a flaw in the movie, in my opinion.
Alan Rickman is the smartest character in the film. The whole time while the town is trying to.
You sure about that? Dude's got the ability. The dude's got the ability to make people have an orgy at will. You think he's the smartest?
Generally speaking, there's a idea
Oh, okay.
of what obsession can do and create. Um, but in the focus of Alan Rickman's character, he is the one that is basically the thought is he can find the murderer. We have to get inside his head. He's basically decoding everything. He's saying, why are we trying to call in the church to expel this? Like, we need to get some hard facts. And he has the wherewithal to like escape and try and go to a monastery to save his daughter. And the whole time, this is why this is how I read it. Yeah, he's far enough away. He's in the rafters right there. He's not in the pit of people. And he
There's
sees
other.
this.
Anyway,
And he walks down, and once he gets close to him, he has to bow to him. And that's the power that Jean Baptiste has. Even somebody
me,
that's an enraged father.
to me, you take that
Has to
another
bow.
degree. You have him suck John Baptiste's dick. And
Well, this would be if William
That's what-
Friedkin made the movie.
yeah, but that's what I would do. Like if you're that close, it's on his hand from the handkerchief. It's on his hand. Like I don't know. It was just a little bit of a flaw for me. I will say this. It'd be interesting to have that ability. It'd be very fascinating to make people just do whatever it will. But I like to see what you think about the last scene. That's when he knows, like, he's never gonna be loved for himself.
This is
ever.
this is the voiceover that I liked the most in the film. I feel like is when you hear that he still has enough of that vial that he could, write the Pope a letter and claim himself as the next Messiah. He can,
Yeah.
basically bend everybody to his will. But the reason that he doesn't want to do that is because he will never know true love or never feel true love from a person. And that's hurting. He walks back to the place that he was born, and it it turns into like a zombie movie, right? That's what it felt like, that last scene, where you have this group of very poor Parisians around a fire, very dirty, at night, and he walks back and he just dumps all of that perfume that he made on his head. And those people just turn towards him. And like I said, it's like a zombie film. They just come and ravage him till he is no more.
So it sounds
I
like
would-
there's these carnal desires. Basically, they have to get. There's a requisite carnal desire. First is food, which if you don't have food, you're going to want to eat, and therefore they eat his body. And secondarily, if you're full, maybe you just go into an orgy type mode, and if you have this proper sense. But to me, also that was strange. It was odd behavior, but the fact that he was an all-knowing character, I guess maybe he is Satan. That he has now 20 people that have eaten the flesh of Satan. There's going to be variations of Satan incarnate, but it's an interesting concept. But at least he's loved, and his flesh is loved by these people that were once him. It's a weird movie, but I loved it. Honestly,
Yeah,
I don't know how to rate it. Very strange, weird, odd. Like both these movies are just so dumb and ridiculous to rate. It's just like, what do you do with it? Honestly, like it's weird.
Here's the thing. Like I enjoyed watching this film. Is this a film that I will want to put on again? I don't know.
I've seen Perfume. This is probably like 6th or 7th time I've seen it. I don't say I'm never gonna watch Killer Joe again.
You don't need to.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
But my movie memory is terrible, so I might say this again in like 2 weeks and be like, I just watched Killer Joe again. Have you seen it?
But did you say you watched this on a plane?
No.
Oh, I thought you watched Killer Joe on a plane. I'd be like, that's a weird watch if
Oh.
somebody's sitting next to you.
Oh, you're right. I did watch this on a plane as well as Perfume. Oh, but I bought the movie itself, but I did watch it physically on a plane. Yes, that's right. It wasn't on the Killer Joe was not on an airplane via their own
Got
source. Yeah. I downloaded both movies and watched both on the plane too.
There are some movies that like I will start watching on a plane and realize like this, like if the guy sitting next to me sees what I'm watching, like I'm like I'm going to turn this off.
It was my phone, and I was on the aisle, so I moved it in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So But nonetheless,
Interesting.
let's rate them. It's that time of the day where bath time is showing up and Appa needs to go. But nonetheless, again, I have no just both of these movies are odd in their own way. I think Killer Joe, to me, it's just, I don't even know what to say about it. It's a dumb family, and it presses you. But I would like to be pressed a little more. There's, you ever seen Red Rocket?
That's a newer film, right?
Simon Rex, yeah. That's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like
I've seen
an
it.
awkwardness that like pushes you, but it also has this like tied into like delusions of grandeur. I think it kind of did a better job of it. Perfume is just a weird one. There's a narrator. There's no real quotes to me, but I did like the storyline. It kind of had like the Guy Ritchie editing to it to some extent, but let's get into it. Which one did we go through first? I guess we did mine. So let's do Killer Joe. So Killer Joe, best performance. I gave it an 85. I actually think, I don't even know the guy's name, but Jean Baptiste, whoever acted there, I thought he did a terrific job.
Yeah, I gave it an 85 as well. Even with very little dialogue in this film, and for such an awful character that turns into a monster, you still kind of feel sorry for him.
Yeah, you do.
Which is credit to him.
And both movies, I collectively thought there really wasn't much. I mean, is there a quote available for somebody who's just giving like a voiceover, if you will? And I'm like, and that's Perfume. I was like, I don't know. And then Killer Joe, it's like, there's some stuff there, but they both got a 75. I mean, I'm not quoting them at the same or evaluating them at the same time, but like they both were equally like, meh, whatever. Kind of
there is not much I can pull from Perfume. That I think the themes were strong in it, but the quote not so much. I give it a 70.
Yeah, it didn't have much. The score on both, I mean, the Perfume actually did have I think a better score, but they both were very average. Killer Joe especially, I think it was, I mean, maybe a 70. I gave it a 75, but it didn't have anything in terms of score.
Yeah, I liked the score in Perfume. It just stood out more. It stood out, right?
Yeah. How do you like evaluate a movie? You're like, it stood out more. It's like clearly these movies aren't great overall,
but it did allow a very certain tone to the movie with like the choir and
tone,
canting and everything like that. So I give it an 80.
The editing for Killer on Perfume or for Killer Joe?
The score was an 80. The editing.
So the score on Perfume was an 80 for me as well. Then
okay,
we both at the same time, and then editing for Killer Joe, I gave an 80 as well. I mean, it just wasn't that much editing in my opinion. I did like some screenshots, but like the editing was, I mean, if anything, it should be a little lower.
I thought it was above average.
Yeah, it is.
It was fast paced, and I did watch some of Run Lola Run to just kind of get a feel of like what this director was capable of. Huh?
How do you find the time to do all this?
I didn't watch the whole movie. I just watched some of it. But yeah, I gave it an 85.
For Killer Joe, anyway.
I'm still talking about Perfume. I haven't talked about any scores for Killer Joe.
Oh Jesus, I was talking about Killer Joe. I started off first. So I'll start all over then. The performance I thought was excellent from the main character from John Baptiste. I gave him an 85. The quote 75. The score was an 80. Editing was a 90. I thought the editing and the shots with the Guy Ritchie shots that were put together were spliced very well. And then the screenplay itself, odd. So odd that I actually probably downgraded points, but I enjoyed it. It was an 85. It was I don't want to say revolutionary, but different. And then directing, I also gave an 85.
It's hilarious that we were giving different scores for different movies, but hey, such is podcasting.
I started off with Killer Joe, and then you went to Perfume, but nonetheless.
Oh, because you were combining them. You started. I didn't understand where you were going with it because you started talking about Perfume as well and Jean Baptiste. But anyways,
let's hit it.
That's okay. Real quick, screenplay writing 80 for Perfume, directing 80 as well. I like that he didn't use a lot of CGI at all, really. They shot on location. It was the most expensive German film made at the time. Filmed in Barcelona and other cities in Europe that still had that old aesthetic. Best performance, Killer Joe. Again, right in the heat of the reconnaissance. I love Matthew McConaughey. This is like when I was living in Texas when I saw this film. So I was pro reconnaissance. I gave it a 90. Best quote, again, like 80. Your eyes hurt. Don't kill mama. Are you going to kill my mama? Like they're not classic quotes by any means, but they do, some of them stick with you, I feel like. Best score, 70 on that.
75.
Yeah,
There just wasn't a score. I mean, there wasn't.
yeah.
Editing
As far
was
as
80.
85 for me, I thought being able to film in such a tight space like a trailer and still give that weight to it was really good. Screenplay, writing, based on a stage play. I thought they did a good job, 85, and directing, I gave it a 90. This is one little thing that I found interesting about William Friedkin, and I watched a hour-long Q&A session with him and the actors on YouTube, and he basically does one or two takes. He's the opposite of Stanley
3 takes
Kubrick.
tops. Yeah.
He's just
I actually vehement. I mean, everyone can do whatever the fuck they want to. I like the idea of what Kubrick does more, like a lot more, than the idea that you're taking 2 to 3 takes. I like the idea of it becoming something else than acting. This frustration, and then this dealing with that, and then there's a different layer that comes with pushing actors. I think I like that. So the David Finchers, the Kubricks, I think that's the way to go in life. If you have a good editor, with that being said, if you don't have a good editor, it doesn't make any sense at all. Lastly, Killer Joe, I gave it an 80 for directing. I mean, it's fine. I think Glenn Ross was it's a much better directed movie. Screenplay was much better. No score, but it was an interesting watch. Both of these are just odd movies that I may never watch again. Perfume, yeah, I think.
But I'm glad I got to talk to you about it because, well, this is one film that not many people have seen. So I can't be like, hey, you seen Killer Joe? Let's.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it. Neither of us have heard of any of these, but I do actually have the next For You movie, and in that For You movie, I have also not seen it. So should we do that For You movie together and collectively? But I have seen the trailer, and I know that it's a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I know that it looks unbelievable. Well, we can talk about it later because I hear the water running.
Water's running. You can smell it, I bet, right? You can smell that water.
Champions, champion, ole, ole, ole. I wish I had a soccer podcast because it would be much better than Perfume.
Your chanting is pretty good, but
good. It's funny because I'm actually quite fan.